This is Naomi Ackerman, coming to you from the Advot offices in Los Angeles, California. Advot is a local nonprofit that uses theater to empower youth to find and use their voices. With Advot, I have spent over a decade working inside the walls of the Los Angeles Juvenile lockup facilities, or Juvie, as it's called in slang. When I started this work, I would drive every Thursday to teach the Ripple process. Today, Advot teaches over a dozen classes in multiple sites in LA County. I have had the privilege of meeting the most extraordinary youth inside the walls. Thursday in Juvie is where it started. I invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, take a little walk, and listen. Listen to the voices of these beautiful people. First, through a story I tell about my experiences teaching, followed by a remarkable interview with system-impacted individuals who have all changed their lives and are inspiring beyond measure. I'm so happy you chose to join us today to experience the power of love, forgiveness, redemption, and change. This is Thursdays in Juvie, and now, the show.
For many years, I was a professional clown. I am long retired. But the truth I always share that no one gets is that I am a stilt walker. I love seeing the girls' faces when I explain the game of two truths and a lie. I'll say, I have 4 kids. That's a lie. I am a really good stilt walker. That's the truth. I lived in the Middle East for most of my life. That's the truth. They are awestruck that I know how to walk on stilts. Many of them never even saw someone who does that. They think it is crazy, and it opens up the playing field for them to think who they can be, who they are, and what they know how to do. Two truths and a lie. There is a theater icebreaker getting to know you game called Two Truths and a Lie. Someone tells 2 truths about themselves and 1 lie. Participants need to guess what the 2 truths are and what is the lie the person is saying about themselves. We started the session playing this game. The truths are deep, dark, and each one physically hurts to hear. I can be crazy. I chew meth as opposed to smoking it. Who knew? My mother is dead. I am a drug addict. I need to smile more. The lies are ridiculous, silly, young, and make us laugh a big laugh. A laugh of release, a little hysterical, in an attempt to ease the pain of the truths. My girlfriend is fat. I have a car that has no wheels. I love the color blue. My mom is an astronaut. I don't like candy. There's a voice in my head begging the lie to be true and the truths to be some crazy lie. But I know better. We use funny, oversized props to tell stories, and then I talk about how each of us has a story and that together we will learn how to move forward and hopefully change that story. How I want to help these girls change their story. I ask them, tell me right now, who are you? What is your story? If the truths hurt, their stories and who they say they are hit so hard, I have to hold my core tight, not to fall apart to 1 million pieces. I am 14 years old and 14 weeks pregnant. I am a freak. I am a crack baby. I am random. Random? What does that even mean? I am a girl people think they can use. I listen. I hold my core tight. I stand straight as if not mortified by what I hear. Then she agreed to read. A big, tough young woman, bent over like a small little girl. She started to read. "Can you speak a little louder?" I ask her. "No." She doesn't even look up when she answers. "This is what I can do. Listen harder." I do. We all do. Fuck. I'm gonna cry. That's okay. I can barely speak. My eyes are filled with tears. Her tears fall on the paper as she reads, puddles of pain forming on top of the words. I am alone. I am lonely. I am homeless. I am just a teen trying to survive. I am someone no one cares about. I trust no one. I sit down on the floor at her feet. I put my hand on her arm. It's very quiet. One of the girls comes over and stands behind her. Others are crying. She continues. I have a bad temper, but I want to change. Don't judge a book by its cover. I wipe her tears, and I gently say to her, look at me. Look in my eyes. I say again and wait. Look at me. Look at me. Do you trust me? I ask her, do you trust me? No. Good. I smile. She looks a little confused. I hope you will trust me, but all in good time. I want and need to earn your trust. Is that okay? Yeah, she says. I wipe her tears, I hold her close, and I whisper in her ear, I care. I care. I know you don't believe me, but I'll show you, and I'm going to bring others to see and listen to you. I am going to bring others that care. Just wait. You will see. I stand up. Okay. I smile as if I just saw a baby being born. That was amazing. You guys did great. The layers of these girls are unfolding. And I sigh. So young and so many layers. It shouldn't be so complicated for them. Not yet. On my drive home, I think of my own I am. Who am I? What's my story? I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a sister and a wife. I am an activist. I am so lucky to have had an abundance of joy and opportunity and a supportive village in my life. I try with all I have to see the light in the dark. I am a woman who believes with everything I am that change is possible and that love, well, love is the seed of that change. I am a person who wants to believe and asks, hell, begs God and society to help me help these girls understand that they can be more, that they can have more, but most of all, that they deserve more. They deserve so much more.
Stick around as I speak to one of my former students who has transformed themselves and their lives. I promise you, you will be inspired. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to receive notifications about new shows. Join the Advot Ripple. Make a contribution today. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for joining Thursdays in Juvie. The conversation continues. Today, I'm sitting with Garry Powers, who he doesn't even know this, but he is a personal hero of mine. Yeah. I first met Garry. I was doing a tour at Homeboy Industries, and he was telling his story, and I have just had the pleasure of having him in my class. and watch him kind of move from being a trainee to a case manager to a senior staff member. I mean, watch out, Garry. Soon you're going to probably run the whole joint. I wouldn't be surprised.
Don't say that. I don't want to generate no haters yet.
That's true. But I think what has moved me the most is that you really are all about serving others and giving back to the community. Fun fact, I have also the great honor of having Garry as a Advot project. He's on the Advot project advisory board. And I know that when I need advice, I can turn to him. And it's just wonderful to have you here. And I'm excited to share your wisdom and your story with anybody who's listening. This podcast is called Thursdays in Juvie. And that's the day that I used to spend up in the juvenile halls. And it's really about sharing and telling the stories of young women who I met in the detention facilities, particularly in Camp Scudder. I know that you have you spent a lot of your life in and out of the system. If you could think of two things you'd want to share from your personal story, what would they be?
Two things. Oh, my personal. Two things. Well, it depends. So if you want to go middle, beginning, or end, I mean,
I'm going to let you choose that. It can be middle and end. Why not, or beginning and end? Why don't you can bookend it? Where did your story start? Where did it end?
For me, like what people automatically assume because my last name is Powers that I'm actually white or Caucasian, but I'm actually from a Hispanic household. But my mother was married to my father, which is Garry Powers. So, growing up in my family, it was always a challenge for me and my brother because you're not full Mexican, so you had to prove yourself. And then furthermore, when we got incarcerated, it was even worse because you're not full white, you got to prove yourself. You're not full Mexican, you got to prove yourself. And then at that time, all the factions, it was about race. So naturally, the blacks didn't like us either. We were like the black sheep. So, I mean, and I do have a twin brother. I have a twin brother, but he's the ugly one. But he's actually with us at Homeboys now. And so I think for us growing up, we were always, we were always the runs or the underdogs. So everything for us was always a challenge or a fight. But not only that, I mean, going back to my adolescence, that's where most of my behavior was learned. I mean, growing up in my household, it was a very hostile, very violent. It was almost like a comic book. Poo, pow, ping. Don't do this, don't do that. So at an early age, that was kind of language we learned. And then, then it just spiraled out of control. Because it was what we were taught. And then, I remember, as time progressed, we started moving away from wanting to be home, indoors with the family because it didn't really feel much of a home. We were running to the streets from home. And then I think, in retrospect, we kind of created this like family, but it was just a reflection of a bunch of broken people trying to fit in with each other. Mm-hmm. So we kind of hung on to each other. We created this camaraderie, but you got to remember, we're all adolescents. So the one thing that we didn't have growing up was probably parents because you're two big teachers. So we're all making really dumb decisions, but everybody's like, well, lock them up, throw away the key. I mean, I have 3 beautiful daughters, and if they were outside on the street corner, I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? That they'd rather be here than be with me. Am I not cool? But it would never be to lock them, throw away the key. But I'm glad we've gradually moved away from that. But that's one thing, just a little bit about my childhood. But there's a part in here you ask about change. And I remember I was right after my 11th year. I mean, I don't have the photos now, but I had all my neck blasted. And, I remember I got out and I had my neck blasted. I had a brand new iPhone, brand new Levi's, Jordans, $200 and an EBT card in my pocket. And I'm actually at a family gathering with a lot of people, right? And they're like stocks, bonds, IRA Roths or whatever. They're talking all that stuff. So a female turns to me. She's like, so what do you do for a living? And I remember I thought about this big. I was like, yeah, we got to work on something here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but this is, when you asked about change, I don't share the story with a lot of people, but right before I paroled after my term, I had an older gentleman tell me, hey, you know what? Call me by my nickname, which was Liesel, which meant clever, but couldn't be too clever if I'm incarcerated, right? So he says, when was the last, can I ask you something? And right away, I think like, hey, no funny stuff. You know what I mean? We're in prison, And he says, when was the last time you were comfortable in your own skin?
Wow.
And as soon as he asked that, here's the thing. It's just like a light bulb went on, because I've had never, you think that's something your parents would ask you, or a good friend, like, hey, are you okay? You know, when he asked me that, my first reaction was like, what? And then I caught it. I said, wait a minute. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. So I remember reflecting on my bunk for days and days and days. And he was like, you got it? And I go, yeah. He goes, when was the last time you're comfortable in your own skin? I said, when I was just Garry. And it was just acknowledging that, like, wait a minute, this ain't who I am. This is just something I created. I'd rather just be Garry. Just acknowledging that and asking why, or who am I, or where am I going, you know, or what's next. That was like huge for me, you know? Yeah.
Wow. I need to think about that. That's such a good question. When were you last comfortable in your skin?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people who are not incarcerated that we need to ask that question to also. You know, it's not a given that people are comfortable in their skin. So you started kind of answering the second question.
I'm sorry, I guess.
No, don't be sorry. It's beautiful. Everything you said was perfect. So you made I think it was a conscious choice to make a major change in your life. Mm-hmm. So what were things that had to change? Like, what are the things that you had to shift? Like you know, you and I have talked a lot about bringing you in to talk to the juveniles and to talk to minors about what do they have to do for their life to change?
Well, here's the thing. We talk about this at Homeboys, right? And this is the one I love, because one thing I realized when I was actually gangbanging is that I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I was projected to be scary because deep down inside I was scared. You know what I mean? I used to think hurting people was gangster. Now I think as a man, you could sit there and process your emotions and navigate life, and just, you know, from an adult standpoint and perspective, that's gangster. You know, because you're managing it. And you know, it's not our fault, because the way we were raised, my parents only knew what their parents knew. Mm-hmm. But now on my end, we get a chance to break the cycle. But I think the one thing changed is like kind of like the veil fell off. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I remember, you know, speaking with G, you know, and hearing Shirley talk, and Jose, you got to inhabit your true self, who you are. Well, how am I supposed to know? Wait, I can't tell you. You got it. That's how lost I was. And, but I remember, and G has this saying, it's, and the soul knows its worth. So I think it's about you inhabiting your true self. And what I mean by that is you stop being what everyone else expects you to be and be who you want to be. For me, that's what it is. When you be who you want to be, it's when you're going to be the happiest with yourself. It's like peace on earth, you know? Mm-hmm. And, you know, for me, as I got older, I mean, do I value people's opinion? Yeah, they're close to me. Am I driven by it? No, absolutely not. I just don't. So it's like, I think, you know, as a child growing up, you know, really not having a voice, you know, growing up in a hostile environment, you know, our fights were with violence, but, you know, being young, impressionable, vulnerable, peer pressure. Now, all these things, like, I can see in my kids, and I know what to do. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you know what? And one thing I've always looked back on is I never regret everything that happened to me. You know, because someone told me after I had my kids, I have Jordan, Bobby, and Rudy. I got a redhead, ginger, and a brunette, and they're awesome sauce. And you know, after going through all my experiences, I mean, remember the first day my daughter was born, I remember I got to be exactly what I never had to them, and that's a father. You know, so for me, it was like powerful to actually see that. Like as soon as I had my kids, I caught it. I said, oh no, they're in for a treat. You know what I mean? Because they get to have all the things I never did. You know, so it's been a journey, man. I love it.
Yeah, I love it, and I just not, you know, because I come to Homeboys a lot, but I'm not, when you say, I'm not sure everybody who's listening knows who G is. And just to give the reference, it's Father Gregory Boyle, and he's the founder, and he's not the executive director, but he's the founder and the spiritual leader of Homeboy Industries. Yeah. And just a plug-in for him, if you don't know who he is, Google him. And if you have not read his books, buy them and read them, because he really is, everything he said is really golden. And yes, I think, and I'm going to say this, I think it's not just for incarcerated youth. I think all of us need to work on being comfortable in our own skin and being authentic to ourselves. And we all put on so many masks and try to be so many things that maybe we're not. And the most beautiful thing, and I love, because I know how much effort you're putting into parenting, and I might have to take some parenting classes from you, but just saying that I love that you are invested in giving to your children what you didn't have, because that is where where it starts, right? Like you didn't have certain things and then you went to the street to look for it. So moving away from you, you know, I'm a big believer in community and the power of community. What did you need? Like how did community be part? And I know that you've been at Homeboy for a while, but I also know that you like went out to you worked in different places. Like what helped you? What did you need from the community around you for you to make the change in your lifestyle, in your life?
Well, you know, it was the way we moved in solidarity. Everybody's heart beats to the same drum, you know, kinship, compassion, change, validation, acceptance. And I'm like digesting what is all this? And every day, you know, I never learned this. And every day I learn it, you know, and you know, every day I learn it and I start to inhabit it. And then I start to notice that I start to become a better version of me. I start to love me. I wake up in the morning and I'm like a robot. It's time to go to Homeboy. Because what I mean by that is because what I'm getting out of that place is like nowhere else I ever experienced it. You know what I mean? And like they say, it takes a village, but I think it's the way we move in solidarity as one to the same goal, you know, to the same song. So I just think really just honestly it was just some of those things I mentioned and just support, you know? And they have this, Homeboys has this way of not forcing you to change, but introducing a platform of change. And then you get to like a kid in a candy store, get to pick, hey, what do you want to do? And they support you. So it's just that community is amazing, you know? And it all reminds me of what G says, you know, community trumps gangs. And then he also says, see, this is what I like about Homeboys, because what we foster and what we continue to cultivate is healing. Mm-hmm. You know, G always says, well, the educated gang member more than likely reoffend. Absolutely. Okay, I got smarter, so now I want to get away with more crime. But a healed one, will he reoffend? No, you know? So yeah, it's just, I mean, there's so many ways to explain that community, but like when you think of, you know, the saying, it takes a village, that's a hell of a village, you know?
Yeah. What would you say, you know, lots of people, hopefully a lot of people are listening and will be listening. Mm-hmm. People who aren't part of that Homeboy community, people who are listening to this just in the broader community, what would you tell them? What do they need to do to help someone who's coming out of jail, to help someone who has a past, who has been gang involved? What would be a message that you would say to them? Like what is needed from the community for someone like you to be able to succeed?
Oh, availability. Be available. I remember one time, I'm going to share this with you. I was with Father Greg. We went to speak, I want to say in Frisco or New York. And it was, I believe it was a Jesuit or a Catholic church. And I swear you walked by and I felt like they were all vampires getting ready to eat us because they got their collars on and they're watching us. And I'm like, gee, it's a tough crowd right here. And so I remember with G, he had a chance to go to the podium. So now they get to ask G, like, what can we do to improve our church, our parish? And he says, well, you're not going to do much standing up here on the podium and watching everybody pass by. It's about being available, you know? So I think being available, like Homeboys, we don't do outreach, but we're available. We got an open door policy. There's a place, you know, Hope has an address. So I think it's all about being available, you know?
I think, you know, I know you came with me once to the synagogue to speak. Mm-hmm. And I know that people at the synagogue were very moved and inspired by your honesty, like you did now, you shared with no shame. And I think, and this is, I'm projecting, but I think when you come healed and say, this is who I was, but this is who I am now, people join. Like they love the story. Like they people judge when they have what to judge. But when you came so not that you should have any shame, but you came with no shame. You shared your story. You were so open to people who were so radically different than you. And in that room, in that synagogue, you were the first gangbanger that they ever met, or the first person who had a tattoo on the back of his head, because it's a pretty conservative location. Yeah. And you changed their world because you are available also. I think it's like a two-way street, that when you are honest and available, then people, I want to believe, and I know that it's not always like that, but I think that if you come in with availability and honesty, that's where change starts to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. What? Sorry.
creates a mutuality on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember that experience. I don't know how it was for you, but you rocked their world.
I was so nervous, man. There's something about those hats too that I don't know. I'm not being funny. It makes me nervous.
It's the yarmulke. I said, yeah, they wear, yeah.
Like their status. Like if I was a gang member, well, here's my tattoo, but you got your thing. It makes me nervous. I'm just okay.
See, and that's what's also really funny. Like they were nervous because in the back of your head there was a tattoo, and you were nervous about the yarmulke that they wear on the top of their head. Mm-hmm. So I think we're so much more similar than we are different, which is kind of funny. So I know that. I mean, I don't know if you were locked up when you were a juvenile, but I know they were locked up later. But you and I have been talking about going into the halls, and we're working on that, and we want to bring you in. But if there was something you could say to your younger self, what would be that message? What would you say to your younger self?
Yeah, that's I thought about that. My younger self, I don't know. That's a good one right there. Cause I have no regrets about my past. But if I can say one thing to my younger self is, God, I don't know. I think I'd be like, I don't know. Somewhere along the line, you know what, buddy, it's only going to get better. I don't know if you know this, but you're priceless. Cause at that time I really didn't feel that way. I felt like less than, not equal to, stepped on, thrown away. So, but now that I'm older, I mean, I just full of so much confidence, self-love, love myself. I love myself to death. So I don't know. But back then I didn't, I remember when I went through Homeboys and someone told me, hey man, what did they say? Cause I had a really, really bad childhood. He goes, why don't you love yourself? And I was 31 years old. You know what I did? I grabbed the phone and I Googled love. Because I didn't even, I know it sounds funny, but I'm like, and then it started saying everything it was. And it's the exact opposite of what I experienced as a child. So I don't know. That's a tough one to my younger self.
You said it. You just answered it. I love that. You're priceless.
You're going to get even more handsome.
You're going to get even more handsome. Wait, what did you say? You said that it's going to get better?
Yeah, it's only going to get better.
It's only going to get better. Those are, if I am waiting for you to be cleared to come into the halls with me, because I don't think that any of those guys feel like they're priceless. If anything, they feel worthless. By our society, by locking these kids up and caging them, that's how they make them feel. And when someone feels priceless, then they don't need to hurt anybody. Like that's, when we try to change these systems, what I want to say to the systems is that this is not going to make anything good. This is on the contrary. This is going to actually make it worse. By throwing someone in some cage, you're not going to make them feel good about themselves. You're not going to rehabilitate them. You're just going to make them more angry. So I love that. And this thought that it's just going to get better. Like that makes you want to have a future. That's like amazing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely, I have to piggyback off. You're absolutely right. Because I remember, you mind if I go off? I'm gonna share a little story about my daughter.
No, of course. I
remember years back, and I started in LP in Central in 1995.
Oh wow!
So I went in Camp Rocky. I was in Challenger. I was in LP, Central, East Lake, all the whole nine. I did all that. And the one thing I can call out that is every time I got out, I got a little worse off than I was when I went in. Like it was treating me for the next step. And then I went to the county, and then they were getting me prepared for prison. And the next thing you know, I've gone so far that I don't know how to turn back. But if they would have caught it when they isolated me in that little cell as a juvenile, and my whole thing was like, no one understands. No one understands. And I didn't really choose to be here. Was it a healthy decision? No. Not all choices are created equally. I didn't grow up in Beverly Hills with a silver spoon. I'm not knocking anybody. I didn't have after school options or resources. I wore the same clothes every day. People made fun of me. So these are all things that really messed with my childhood versus somebody that had these things and I didn't. But I remember, now that I had my daughters, I remember I'd be trying so hard to understand them. So I have my 5-year-old. Out of nowhere, she just became really violent in school, right? And so they're calling me every day, Mr. Powers, you got to pick up your daughter. And I remember being stressed out, and I'm just trying, hey, what's going on? We don't treat each other like that at home. Have you seen someone do this and you haven't told me? Is that where you think this is okay to treat people like this? Do you want this to happen to you? She's like, no. I go, then what's the matter? She's like, you just don't understand. And I used to just like, Jordan. So, and this is a true story. And as a parent, I didn't know what to do. So one day they called me, like, Mr. Powers, you got to pick up your daughter. She just assaulted somebody. I'm like, assaulted? She's 5. I go, come on now. No, come on. I get there. She's got this fiery red hair and her arms are crossed. And I said, go ahead and get in the car. We'll talk when we get home. And they just don't understand. She just cried. I'm like, tell me. So then I told her, go to your room. You're on time. We do timeouts. You're on timeout now. When you're ready to talk, come on. We'll talk. Okay. So as I go to put my stuff on the entertainment center, I put it down. And she just turns around with this fiery red hair and she goes, they just don't understand. So I take one knee, because it's the thing to do. And I said, come here, talk to me. And now I'm alarmed, concerned as a parent, like, well, what's going on that I didn't catch? And you know what she says to me? And this was nothing. And she was right. I didn't understand. You know what she told me? She goes, Daddy, that kid showed up all dressed up with Brett's and looked colorful. She reminded me of the piñata, so I had to hit her. I was like, no, Jordan. Yeah. And to this day, and the mom was like, you think it's funny? I go, what do you want me to say? I go, when I was a kid, you asked me if I hit someone. I don't know. She had a whole, and I had to take her to a therapist for it. And he said, yeah, it is true. So after that, guess what? No more piñatas, just cakes. That's it. Cakes and presents.
I love that. That's a great story. And I think, how lucky are your kids that you have had the power of learning to know how to come back and be an amazing parent. And I'm really excited to take you to LP with me and to Rocky so that you can inspire these kids, because I know I'm inspired by you and I know that they will be inspired by you. So this is amazing. This is wonderful. And I think you're just going to continue to grow and be amazing, and your kids are going to be amazing because they have an amazing dad. So I love the story. I think that's an awesome, awesome story. Yeah. Great.
I'm really excited about going into the halls because, coming from the same background and they see someone being able to change, that's been there, done that. And now this is the end result. Like, wait a minute, you did this. I could do it too. So what it does, it's empowering. It allows
the
person the permission to do the same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I can come in there, and I've said this before, like I can come in and say, I believe in you. But when they see someone like you, then they'll like, oh, I believe in me. It's like exactly what you said. You're priceless. Like I can tell them they're priceless, but when they see someone like you who's has a job, who's not gangbanging, who's living this life in a way that they can't even imagine, that's very inspiring. And I'm inspired, and I wasn't a gangbanger, but I'm inspired even from that first time that lady said, oh, you have to remember that lady who was in the group that I was in, and she came and talked to you. I don't even remember if we ever talked to her again, but it's you've changed already from there. You've like moved forward. So it's amazing. It's great. And hopefully we're going to make it happen.
Yes. So, sure. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Hopefully we'll have you on again.
Of course.
Thank you for choosing Thursdays in Juvie with Naomi Ackerman in partnership with Advot. I know you have many choices to listen to, and I appreciate you giving us your time today. Time is precious, which is exactly why we must pay attention to individuals, particularly youth, who are serving time. I hope hearing these stories will help you see the youth Advot works with as the amazing humans they are, and not just judge them as random case numbers. Did you enjoy this podcast? If so, please share the podcast from our website, www.advot.org, with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you'll join us again, because the more we listen, the better we understand. The better we understand, the more compassion we have. Compassion changes the world. Listening is the first step. In gratitude.